I think it was 1985 that the Kings moved to Sacramento. But prior to that, I had a lot of friends uh, growing up, and one of them was uh, uh, the realtor,
Um, Bob Cook.
Bob Cook. Yeah, we played poker together, by the way. Yeah, we had some good games back then. But anyway, Bob Cook was one of the minority owners, and who's the contractor?
Luke and Bill.
Luke and Bill was another one, and then
Ben Venuti.
Ben Venuti was the big partners. But anyway, I was a real close friend of Bob Cook, and so he asked me a lot of questions about arenas, and I told him what I knew a little bit about. I never did an arena before, but he could tell me what engineering is all about. But not known to everybody, the owners arranged a trip back to Kansas City, and they invited me to go along. So I had a chance to go there and visit Kansas City, where the Kings were before. And this is during their negotiation to buy the Kings. And shortly after that, they were successful, and they kept it mum. It's so then they started looking at where to build an arena before the Kings came, and they wanted to put it in the Thomas, but back then Mayor Rudin would not allow any expansion of city limits. So Natomas was out of the question. But the county was willing to do it. And so what happened, the Kings owned a piece of property that was in the county that bordered the city limits, but in the county. So they worked out a deal with the county to locate in the county. They bought this piece of property. So because I was a good friend of Bob Cook, I was able to be included in the design team, and Dreyfus and Blackford was the architect. So working with the Kings, Luke and Bill told me that, look, we don't want the public to know anything about what our plans are. They don't know that we're buying the Kings. So what we'll do is we'll build an arena to make it look like a warehouse. So when we pull the building permit, it's going to be a big warehouse, a huge one. And after the warehouse, we'll convert it to an arena. And then after we can relocate to Natomas in the city, we'll renovate it to be a office building. So I had to design that building 3 ways: as a warehouse, as an arena, and then converting it to an office building. So that's how it went. And eventually they brought the Kings over, and they made it public that they were bringing heirs. And so we went full bore. It's I mean, I can't believe Luke and Bill was in my office every other week on my back looking, hey, where are you? We need the plans. We need the plans. I was meeting during construction. I was meeting with him every Sunday, about how the projects come along. But that's the big part of it. That's what happened as far as the arena was concerned, and it was one of our biggest projects at that time. Well, at the time, but before that, it's we did the local convention center. But this is back in 1970, and that was our biggest project back then. Like we've got some lot big project. I have to tell you, we started very slow. We knocked on every door we can. I didn't have a paycheck for 6 months. So it took us 3 years to get our foot on. Yeah. So even though we were very successful at the end, we started like every other small business.
So Chris, our family life at that time, it was just my dad and his partner. And during the business day, he would be driving around trying to look for jobs, trying to put out bids and get work. And then he would come home for dinner, but every week, every evening was him going back to the office to actually do the work. And that's when my brother and I mean, we had 6 kids here in this house. My mom was glad to get rid of a couple of them. So my dad would bring Ken and me down to the office, and we just fool around on the drafting tables and draw pictures while he was getting his work done at nighttime. But that was kind of what you did when you were starting that business, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, my regular schedule was 8 to 5, come up with dinner. I would work Tuesday, Thursday night, and half day Saturday. That was my regular schedule for many years, up 10 years. Yeah.
Hard work. Your generation was one of the hardest working generations. Just it was the early Chinese worked harder than any people to get what we have today, and that's why I'm talking to you today to capture really what the leading pioneers did just overall, because it was a time of racism. It wasn't like today. So that's amazing. So yeah, we can do another Zoom. I'd love to do a little more Zoom on maybe kind of some more of your topics. To finish up today, so I don't get too long a video, the first video, is there anything you recall? I love the King, so I want to capture some more King stuff. I heard you were swing vote. I remember you were like the swing vote on money on keeping the Kings here the first time. If it wasn't for you, I don't think we'd have the Kings.
You're right. Actually, when the Kings, they borrowed money from the bank, and the guarantee had to go with the arena and the team, and the Kings didn't like to obligate both the team and the arena. So they came to the city to see if they can borrow money and pay off that loan, so they can separate the arena for one thing and the Kings as another. They came and asked them. I heard all the arguments, and when the time during the discussion, I said, "Well, what do you do for collateral? How do you guarantee it?" And I think that Jim Thomas, I think, was the owner. He says, "I've been in this business for a long time. It's gotten to the point where I don't have to worry about putting up collateral." And I told him, "Well, Mr. Thomas, the last time I went to the bank to borrow money, I had to guarantee it." Oh. So then time came to vote. It was 5-4 voted him down. 3 weeks later, during the 3 weeks or month, they went back and discussed everything. They came back to me and asked if I would reconsider if they came up with a loan, with the collateral. And so I said, "Well, I'll consider it." Well, during the next council meeting, they came up, they discussed it, they came up with the collateral. And at the time of the vote, it came down, it was 4-4. And when the time for me to vote, I put up a sign that said, "Go Kings, yay." That was it.
And I think a lot of Sacramento's thank you. I personally, I'm just always been a huge Kings fan, and just something to watch together. Me and my wife had that together in our family, and it's kind of like a school. I went to Sac High when the sports weren't really good. When they became good, their basketball team, it just becomes like something to have in common together, to root for together. And I think that's what helps communities.
Yeah. I'm glad I pushed for that collateral, because the ownership changed over time, and they always try to redo certain things, but they couldn't get rid of that guarantee. Yeah.
That was a wise business choice.
Yeah.
And that was city first, you know, and that's where people sell out their cities for, you know, and I think again that just great leadership.
Well, let me tell
But
you, as a senior citizen, I have 6 kids. I'm very glad that the 2 boys are still in town because they take care of our lunch and dinner every day.
no, they're my idols. I treat my dad the same way. I live down the street and on 8th Street. You know, they live in Road Park, and you know, I think that's what you have, and I want to capture strong family leads, moms and dads, and just strong families, you know, and try to capture because I want to get back into families and community in our society. Right now, I feel that we're losing our identity, and instead of um, I believe that we need to take and fix our communities and everybody take around their communities and take care of their families and take care of their neighborhoods and as small cells build a bigger change. And instead right now everybody wants one president or one person to fix everything. And you can't govern a huge country from far away. And so I think you're a representation of helping to fix a bigger community than many. You fix all of Sacramento, you help make Sacramento a better place. And so I thank you.
And let me just fill in a couple blanks.
Uh-huh.
So he's actually the youngest of 6 kids.
Okay.
And like a lot of families in his generation, the older siblings were actually born in China. And he and his brother, which are the 2 youngest, and the youngest sister, number 4, were born over here. So that kind of lends a lot to the culture in their upbringing. And you know, the second part that I wanted to fill in was with him going into politics. It was never his intention. He was actually starting in the community only because we had a relative whose cousin on the other side of the family, she had leukemia, and come to find out that there was no Asian registry, bone marrow registry. So they asked my dad for help in starting one. So I'm maybe at another interview that he could probably tell you of everything he's done in his career, politically, professionally, otherwise. I think he would agree that I think he said it, the most proud moment he's had was when he started that Asian bone marrow registry.
That was my proudest moment, not politics. It was trying to help his friend whose child had leukemia.
All right. Let's pick up our next interview there. I don't even think we need to say more about that. I mean, that in itself tells a story, but I'd like to get next time we meet, we'll start off with philanthropy.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the basis of we need to get back to. Instead of taking, we need to give. We can have balance. There's no reason we have good lives, but I think a lot of people they talk about philanthropy. But yeah, no, it gives this whole interview has been giving me chills the whole time. And I just think this is what people need to hear. This is what the stories I want to capture.
Yeah, one of the, I shouldn't say a funny thing, but back then $10,000 a lot of money, and I went to because the testing we had to pay, and so I had to pay off the what it cost, 10,000. I went to the bank, borrowed $10,000. I said, whoa, I haven't had to borrow $10,000 from the bank even for myself. Yeah.
No, that's a generous heart. I mean, I know what you're talking about. I think my parents bought their first house for 3,000 or something. So you're talking about a house, you're talking a few houses that you were sacrificing for amazing reason.
Yeah. So his support in becoming a council member was really rooted out of his community help. shoot, all the volunteers he met through that, they're all the ones that ended up becoming his campaign managers and going out there, posting signs for him, knocking on doors.
Yeah.
They're the ones that wanted him there. And, that's the other thing about staying local. That's the one thing you look out for politicians, is those who want to climb the ladder. And he never had a desire to go anywhere outside the community. So every decision he made was made truly for the community. And in fact, how hard it is to get office hours with any council member or supervisor now, every one of his constituents knew he was at Lebu for coffee from 10 to 12 every morning.
Yeah.
And that became his
my office,
unofficial office hours.
Yeah.
They knew they could meet him and talk to him there. He was always available. So, that's kind of one of those things. You could see other politicians when they either write a bill, support a bill, or do something, it's to pad their resume. So when they run for the next level, they can say that this is what they've done. But with him staying local, it was something that he thought was good for the community. So, but I just wanted to touch on that.
Thanks. No, chime in anytime, Don, because you know the history. I don't. I'm coming in it was fresh. I'm going to come into the interviews blind, but based on my Chinese upbringing and what I know, and that's my interpretation in our interviews. So I appreciate it, Don. Everything, and speak up. You help him with his memory, because I understand. I can't remember hardly. I'm always asked. So my dad's the same way. I fill in a lot of the gaps. And I hope we keep talking and just capturing as much as we can. I mean, everything you say is history, and there's so many stories. And I think we need to start making Chinese American stories. Nothing that we made up. It's just happened. But let's let people kind of know what happened, so that we just have to capture history, because you learn from history. And that's how I just appreciate my grandparents and pass it on. But this has been great.
You are talking to other people.
Yeah, my was that I'm gonna do the Yee Dentistry Foundation.
Oh, okay.
My own grandparents, my great grandpa came here, and he went to Oregon University, and so I'm doing a big. And I had a huge family in San Francisco, and on my mom's side, my uncle was the first chief of police of San Francisco. He sued the police department because they had a height requirement of 6 foot or more, and he was 5'7", and so he won.
I think I'm now 5'6".
Yeah, everybody. I'm 5'6", and so not everybody as tall as Don. He's got that northern Chinese gene, but my uncle. So I'm looking just to keep
Fred. Captain Fred.
Yeah, Fred Lau. That's my mom's second cousin.
Wow.
First cousin or second cousin. I grew up like, that's Uncle Fred. That's Uncle Freddy. And you come to think, and he'd be back, and he was in charge of all the triads out there.
Well, he was chief during that time.
Yeah. So he broke barriers, and you broke barriers. And so, it was a different time. I mean, people don't realize what racism is until this isn't racism now. This is people doing, hatred people. It's always never going to go away. There was racism within Chinese, but we can go on and on. And I know Don's got a huge appetite. So I want to pause here so my